Everybody, please welcome directors Josh and Benny Safdie and Adam Sandler.
Amen.
The mic is right behind you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Well,
Hi,
good
everybody.
to see you again.
It's great to be here.
Santa Barbara, I'm
Hello, how are
automatically
you?
happy.
I'm going to start with Josh and Benny. The opening sequence and the last sequence, 2001 Space Odyssey, the fact that we travel through this monolith into the characters. Can you tell us about that opening and closing and the idea behind all of that?
For sure, yeah. 2001 obviously is an evergreen of inspiration. To me, it's Howard. You know, the film is called Uncut Gems. What is an uncut gem? It's something that on the outside is rough and maybe deemed without value. Once you dig down underneath it, past the imperfections, the flaws, you can get at something that's beautiful. And I believe that that's capable. You're capable of finding that beauty in everything in life. And the biggest thing that I took away from 2001 Space Odyssey is that we are the universe, we are the aliens. And I think that, you know, it puts it all into perspective. The movie opens with one guy who in 1 microsecond is worrying about a machine falling on his leg. And on the other side of the planet, another life or death moment that it's being worried about is if Kevin Garnett can hit a free throw. And it just shows you the balance and puts it all in perspective.
But I find it interesting that Garnett sees the gem, sees into it. The Ethiopian characters see into the gem, but Howard is not capable of seeing into the gem.
It was actually a big decision, you know, and also there's only one when he's kind of at the end when he's trying to get at the gem in the back room. We don't play the music either.
Correct. There's no sound in that moment.
And it was a decision. Like, does Howard act? He knows something special about it, but does he have the same access to it? You know, he wants to get access to it, but at the same time, he is it. You know, so that's kind of where. How can you see yourself in that moment?
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, because Howard is the gem himself.
Correct, yeah, that's why the camera goes in and it reveals that he is the gem that you saw at the end.
That's cool.
You can't see yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Adam,
I'm just learning that.
well, I'm glad.
I love that.
I'm glad we're able to educate you about your own film.
Thank you, boys. Thank you.
You're a motor mouth in this film. I mean, was it exhilarating to be able to speak all these words, memorize all the script, and play it out?
Yes. They wrote such great stuff, and I prepared like 4 months before, just memorized it all, so I didn't have to worry about it, and didn't have to think about the words because I love the words so much. And I said I don't want to screw that up. And then they would make shifts during the week and say, "Hey, we rewrote this," and hand me a couple of pages of dialogue, and tried to get that as close as I could. But I know it was really a freeing feeling to be this guy, and guy who's not afraid to talk and say whatever it's on his mind.
But they also do something really interesting. Let's talk about them as if they weren't here.
Yes.
They remove the remove the artifice of conversation in this movie, where you are having a conversation with Lakeith, and there is all this multiple conversations happening behind.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to be in that environment?
That was great. It felt like, they just wanted to put the pressure on Howard, and that he's got one focus over here, there's things that involve him over here, everything in a room. He was a very sensitive guy. They just wanted, when we would discuss Howard, when we would, with the character, it was just like a guy who was just all over the place. He has he likes being busy. He likes having stuff going on. So with the massive amount of conversations going on, and he's involved in this, and then all of a sudden shoots over to that one, and blah, 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 and then gets back to this guy. That was just, it was neat. It was good. A lot of concentration on everybody's part.
And Josh and Benny's sound is such a key aspect of this film. It has a texture. You can actually touch it. You know, can you tell us about the
I think we're looking for the ceiling speakers. I think it's Atmos.
I think it's
right?
Atmos here, right?
I'm sorry?
Okay, yeah, so you
Atmos
guys
here.
experienced it
Correct.
in
It
Atmos,
was
which is
your
cool.
film played in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time working on that, so.
Yeah, but you know, tell us about the sound. The fact that it has, in your film, it has this. This is the comedian, but it seems like the two of them are the comedians.
We like to switch it up in this movie.
Yeah, they got that.
The fact that sound has a texture,
Yeah, yeah.
there's so much happening.
Well, it's funny because you could get the visuals a certain way, but then the sound has to match it. You know, it has to match the character. You know, Howard's moving, like you were saying. He's listening to all these different things that are going on at the same time. So the soundtrack of the movie has to match that. You know, he's hyper tuned in to all of the stuff that's going on. And then also we go into certain parts of, like in the jewelry store, it was a stage. So we got really obsessed with making it sound as good and as real as possible. So we added all these things, went to the district, recorded it. But it really does come down to the character, you know.
And I think what we did on set and production wise, you know, you mentioned the scene between him and Lakeith, which, you know, that was like watching, two incredible heavyweight boxers just spar at each other. The way they made those lines feel so alive, talking about a fake Rolex. But what we did on set was, and this went from the marks with Darius Kanji. He, you know, didn't want us. He agreed to shoot the film without marks, and in terms of on-set production sound, we let people talk. So the 7 or 8 extras who were in that scene, in that showroom, we encouraged them to have conversations and not quiet themselves, that most movies would actually do, so that it'll allow Howard and Damani to have a private conversation and have it actually feel private. Not to say that actors can't act and imagine that, but there's a certain level of subconscious nuance that you add to the way you speak. If someone's yelling loudly, you can raise your voice in a moment, and I think that was very liberating for the actors.
But the other conversations that were happening at the same time, like when Adam was talking to Lakeith, they seemed I mean, I could hear this musicality to it.
Yes, the thing is, the dialogue became another sound effect in a weird way. You know, everything was placed and in parts so that you can try and hear everything at the same time. You know, the sounds, the dialogue, the music, it was all on the same level, and we kind of wove it in. But then to just touch on what you were saying about the sound in the background, it was also kind of hopefully very free, that you didn't have to worry about stepping on the other person before they talked, you know, because...
Felt very New York.
Yeah, for
Felt
sure.
very New York. Everybody was going at it at the same time. And I'll just real quick, I'll tell you, with Eric Bogosian, when we were doing this scene.
Really an actor, talk radio.
Yeah, he's incredible, and he's just comes from just a great actor. And we were in the car doing the scene when Eric was in the front, and the thuggy guys are in the back doing, beating me up a little bit. And those guys were not actors. Those guys are, it was their first thing they ever did. Those guys are truly tough. You know what I mean? They're tough. Yeah.
Looked like a cheetah after that. You know?
They beat me up good. They knew nothing about stunts. They just continued to hit me, but they would talk. These guys gave them the freedom to just go at it and yell and get mad at me. But Eric had lines written, and so he would try to get his lines in there. And those guys were loud, and then finally one take, just Eric. What did he say?
I don't know about any of you guys, but I got fucking lines I gotta say.
Yeah.
And
And then we talked to him. He smashed the dashboard really hard, and I went up to him. I said, Eric, because I think his character, what makes his character so great for us, and this is what we went back and forth with Scott Rudin a lot about, is that he's the bad guy, but at the end, all of a sudden, he's not a bad guy at all. He's just a guy who's been posturing the whole time. So I said, in this moment, you're posturing. You're not actually their boss. You just got involved with them, and if they're yelling and beating the shit out of Howard in the back, you have to assert yourself. You have to let them know you're boss. So you have to, if your line, if you can't find the room for your line, you have to make the room for your line. You have to tell them to shut up. Then you get the calm, because it's not going to work if everyone's just kind of, it's like, when you're writing a script, you write the dialogue and then you put a hyphen because the line's meant to be interrupted. But those actors all need to know what that sentence is that they're continuing, because life doesn't work like that. You don't just get cut off in the middle of the word.
And it's also, just quickly, it's also all these people.
Wanted to move on.
Okay. I was just going to say, because.
No, it's all right. Hey, we're like in the set of this movie.
Yes.
We're like overlapping dialogue.
We just need this. If you guys could patch this into the Atmos, we'll be set.
Yeah.
There's something interesting that goes on when you have these kind of tougher guys who live that life, and then you have them working with like such great professional actors. There's something that goes on between the chemistry of them. They're nervous to act opposite the actors, but then the actor has to bring something that like is more akin to their lives. So it's.
And Adam, there's a maximalist quality to this film. Oh my God, I can't believe I used that term, maximalist, where you're being shot from different angles, the camera.
Yeah.
Is that something that was liberating for you?
For
the
sure.
fact that,
Let me just look up maximum list. Hang on 1 second.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Which is a way to describe your character.
Yeah.
He's a maximalist.
He is. But I'm sorry, I screwed up. What did you say after that?
The fact that the scenes were being shot from
Yes.
different angles.
Well, I mean, I have said this, but the guys, I never really knew what the cameras were shooting. These guys were doing different lenses all the time and had lenses way across the street sometimes, and I didn't realize they were shooting a close-up. And so, it was neat. You always had to be in the scene. I had no idea if it was a master or a real tight shot, or sometimes that was just your mouth or something like that. So you had to be full tilt every take and every setup.
And gentlemen, why that approach of having several angles, different cameras shooting the same scene?
We never actually had. We shot two cameras every once in a while, but never looking at one another. So it was actually harder for the performers because they had to the actual performance had to happen again because it didn't get captured on two cameras at the same time.
We shot on 35 millimeters, so two camera setup all the time gets to just you burn a lot of film. But we did shoot two camera, like when we on our stage. We shot this movie pretty quickly. We shot it in 34 days, and then another day in Africa. But that Africa day, 9 days to set up that one day of shooting. The
camera angles weren't there to help the edit. They were there to help get our coverage of the scene.
But we do have a lot. Like when we shot listed the film with Darius, we did it, and I storyboarded the entire movie. And I usually don't storyboard every shot. In the past, I've done 30% of the movie. This I did 100% of it, and my drawings are really just for me. Some people made fun of them on set, but they, they really are. We try to use the word maximalist. We do try to give credence to every perspective possible, so that, because that's ultimately what the movie's about. It's about everyone's private noise in the cacophony of noises, and what does that mean, and how do you find your own space and earn your own space. So we want to show a lot of perspectives. It's important to see the movie, especially towards the end, not only through Howard's eyes, but through Julia's eyes and through Arno's eyes. And I mean, we weren't filming actually at a Celtics game, but if we could, we would have. Mm-hmm. We would have shown it through Kevin's eyes as well.
Adam, when you read the script, when they approached you and you read this character, this is a crazy, crazy man. What was your thought about tackling this character?
I saw their other movies, so I got very excited to work with them, and I saw what they did with their other movies, and then a really interesting thing was their enthusiasm about Howard made me really excited. They just talked about, on the cover page of the script, it says, "In Howard we trust," and they loved Howard so much and considered him kind of like a heroic guy. And when I read the movie, I loved scene to scene. I loved the whole movie, but I was definitely looking at Howard saying, I don't see, he really messes his family up. He messes so many people he meets. He's lying. He's deceitful. I don't see him as a hero. And then these guys were just saying, but he's just going after his dream. His dream's so important to him, and that's what's they love about him. And so I connected to that, and I just, you know, every scene as an actor, you had so much to think about and so much to do. That's very exciting.
And I was so mesmerized by your performance because this character is one of the most romantic characters I've ever seen. I mean, within one moment, there's like pure elation and at the same time pure despair.
Yeah.
Was that, you know, can you tell us about what was it like to embody those experiences?
Wow, it was moment to moment, and the boys here would always just, before we shot, we just like talked about how much he loves Julia and what she means to him, and they fight, they have a crazy relationship, but he's madly in love with her, and it's just it's another thing in his life that has his head screwed up. The gambling, the love, the fact that he has a wife, the fact that he has kids that are being hurt, but he wants to pretend that's not happening. And I don't know. It was just a lot of moment to moment thinking and trying to just do what these guys wrote.
Yeah, I think that the romanticism comes from the insane optimism that comes from being a gambler. Gamblers are the most nauseatingly optimistic. You're just like, enough already. It's not going to be okay, actually. And you know, that's what it is. But gamblers are very optimistic people, and sometimes if you want to ride with that, that can be very encouraging. But he's a hot and cold guy. We would talk about that. I remember when we were shooting some of the scenes in the nightclub, we talked a lot about how hot and cold Howard is at times. And I remember one of our sound mixers, we were watching the movie, mixing it down, and he had two moments that just sent chills down my spine. One was when Howard's entering the auction the day of when he's carrying those cupcakes, and he just says, "It's a big day. It's a big day." And the mixer just goes, "It's a lot bigger than you know, Howard, because you know it's the last day of his life." And that sent chills. And I was like, "Wow, this guy's really into the movie, our mixer." And then another time he was just sitting there, and he's like turns to the other mixer, Skip Livesey, and he goes, "Something's going on with Howard, right?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't know. Somebody's bipolar. I don't know what." And it was the first time that I ever really thought about the character from a classification standpoint, but there's definitely, you know, Howard definitely has got some stuff going on.
And there was there was something we really kind of was very important. We knew it from the beginning. That moment in the back room where he breaks down with Julia, you know, that was going to be something to see Howard lay it all out. Like, you don't think this is all going to catch up with him. But
someone who's always on, like we talked about Rodney Dangerfield as an inspiration for the role, and because that's a guy who's always on all the time, and you never get to see Dangerfield off. You know, maybe when he's Jack Roy, you know, and then all of a sudden you catch him when he's off. I just recently saw some footage of him when he's just actually just being himself, and it's tough. It's tough to see because he's not putting on that.
Correct. It comes across, Adam, that Howard is not really happy unless he's losing everything in his business world as well as the private world with his family.
Continues to push and push, and it's funny that scene when he gets the Celtic ring and he asks Garnett, you know, I need that as collateral, and he gets the ring. His first instinct is, I'm going to call my son and show him this. You know, gets him on FaceTime, says, Jake, take a look at this, and his son's like, oh my God. So he has like a real moment, a real family moment, and then literally 4 seconds later is selling it. Wants to gamble immediately with that money, and he's just got a lot of different lives going on.
The garment, the Diamond District.
Yeah.
This world it feels like this story couldn't be set anywhere else. It feels like ancient times where...
For me, it's either there or Santa Barbara. feels very Santa Barbara.
I don't think so. I mean, it's such a specific place. You know, that it's almost medieval. That there's no currency.
And we got very. That was another thing we were very. We really wanted to capture on film was that district as it exists in real life. You know, we shot there. We had real jewelers in the movie. You know, Adam trailed the real jewelers to kind of get some of their character down. So it was something we really wanted to nail down that texture.
Our dad worked in the Diamond District. He was a runner and salesman for a guy named Howard, not this Howard, but a Howard. But he was a tough guy, and he dreamt big also. But our dad would often talk. He would have this briefcase that he'd come home with, and inside it would just be gold rope chains. And you know, I remember he gave me a little Knicks pendant, and I used to wear that. I swapped my Star of David out for a Knicks pendant, which says a lot. But you know, you mentioned the medieval element of it, and it really is. This is almost a medieval story. You know, this could go back as far as time in a weird way, because I often, you know, you spend all this time in the Diamond District. I spent 10 years trying to make this movie, and 8 of them I spent in the Diamond District, looking, feeling, taking notes, and there is a spiritualism in the materialism of jewelry. You know, people do so much just to get these shiny objects that make them feel connected to, you know, a time way before them, and there's something there to it, and can you know, like I watched this amazing interview with Brian Wilson, the Beach Boy, right? Brian Wilson, yeah. My mind is, and they asked him, he was like, you know, they say money can't buy happiness, but I spent a lot of money on the piano, and I spent a lot of money on the sandbox that I put my piano in, and that makes me pretty happy. So money does buy happiness, and you know, of course, he's being Brian Wilson in that moment, but at the same time, it's like you can kind of see where your dreams can kind of coincide with the material world. I don't know. There's a lot going on there, obviously.
And Adam, your research into this, how much time did you spend?
A lot, yeah. I got to, these guys, you know, got so familiar with the block and became such good friends with the guys. And they brought me to that world, and we sat together, and I met, you know, a lot of jewelers and a lot of store owners and a lot of families that grew up on the block, and they let me sit with them, and we all sat together. And these guys, you know, we took mannerisms from certain people and things they say, and a few of the guys from the block were on the set while we were shooting the jewelry stuff, just to make sure, because there was some improvising at times, and whenever that was happening, you know, we wanted to be legit, and we had the guys around, and sometimes I would talk about phrasing stuff and how they would phrase it, and I
love the voice that we kind of.
I kind of got a voice from one of the guys, guys that we became close with, who really, the thing we used to, he said scenario. Let me tell you the scenario.
And the eyewear.
These guys, the teeth, the eyewear, it took time. We really, you never do this, but a couple of months before we shot the movie, went and shot scenes, just to feel the character and get to know, make sure we loved who the guy was and how I was talking and how I was looking, and so they put it all together.
Those Cartier glasses, those are $7,000 glasses.
No, I was having eyewear envy.
Yeah, they are. That's a jeweler staple. That's like the vest of a Madison Square Garden security officer. You know, that's the. That if you're not a jeweler, if you don't have the Cartier rimless
and
glass.
Also all the jewelry was like real jewelry. There's that one scene when you're showing FaceTime Eddie. There's like $300,000 in jewelry that you're wearing.
Oh yeah. Crazy. You know when you do the you do the movie props. At the end of the day, when you do props, they come up to you and they take back your ring and they take back whatever the heck you were using as a prop that day, and it's a little nonchalant. Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. On this movie, the prop master was so nervous about how much money I had on my hand. That Jewish star pinky ring was like, that was a lot of cash on that, and so they were like, you know, I couldn't walk away from the set. It was, Adam, stay right there.
you have a lot of scenes on the street, and it doesn't look to me like you close streets in
No,
New York
no.
City. And how was it shooting that you actually have things happening on the streets of New York City, and people are not
Mitchell
looking into the
story.
camera?
The Mitchell story.
Which, oh yeah, so it was crazy because we'd shoot with cameras and people were really on the street, and the block started getting excited and they were looking into the camera and bum rushing Adam in the middle of the scene. We're talking all of a sudden, Adam, come here. And so we had to calm him down a little bit. So the guy said to one of the security guys who worked
Cool it down a little.
said, just, try to help out a little bit if people are looking into the camera or bum rushing at them. Just calm it down a little bit. Just say, hey, hang on a second. So anyways, the scene starts, and one of the guys who came after me, who, I owed money, comes up to me, Howard, and then in the middle of the scene, he's coming at me, just security guard grabs him, stops him, and he's like, what the? And then we call.
The great irony is that the guy he's talking about is the guy who brings the fake Rolex at the end. That's who we're talking about. And in real life, he's actually the leading autograph collector in the tri-state area. So he's very used to getting tackled by security.
And we had worked with him before, and we said, no matter what, you never break. And so he's like, okay. So the security guard grabs him, and he
thinks he's
still
Howard's
screaming,
security guard
he's
or
like,
something.
Howard, don't go. He's still yelling.
But we learned from that and then as we went on, what we did is we started to load extra, more PAs and more extras, and we would give extras almost kind of covert missions. Like, okay, if you see this person stopping and pulling out their phone, go up to them and ask them direction. Go up to them and ask them which way is the subway. So you can start to use the people as pedestrians, and it's tough. It makes it difficult, but it keeps the block alive and the streets alive.
But did they have to sign waivers?
You do this thing
board,
where
yeah.
you have in New York, especially, it's not illegal to photograph somebody if they're in a public space. But what you do is you have these sandwich boards that circle the block and all these signage that say you're entering a radius that you might be photographed for a movie. You might appear in the background of a movie.
And
et cetera, et
I
cetera.
don't know, it was very important for us to capture the energy of the city, to leave it open and have that kind of. There are people who come, literally, it's like in New York, people don't care that you're shooting a movie. They just want to get to where they're going. So they would just walk in and weave on through. So.
I mean, the crazy thing is the 47th.
I got to get to the subway, but wait, Adam Sandler is here. But
well, in the
They'll do a
beginning,
double take. They'll just be like, all right, and then just keep going.
in the beginning, people didn't recognize him at all because he was really owning the character when we first started testing the character out, and it was kind of amazing to see. I mean, you would get it every once in a while, but 47th Street, you're not even allowed to shut the street down because there's so much business that you'd be preventing. So it's not even an option. And there's a reason why there's two other movies that filmed there. Marathon Man, obviously, famously for the ending, and Stranger Among Us, the Sidney Lumet film. And that film did a lot of cheating. Didn't really shoot on the block that much. And, you take a cell phone out on 47th Street, you can get punched in the face. People are very conscious of their privacy there.
I was talking to Adam outside that he worked with Paul Thomas Anderson in Punch Drunk Love, which amazing film, and
That's cool. Thank you. That's Paul.
And no, but Paul Thomas Anderson worked so closely with Robert Altman, and this film, the sound, the way you guys stage things, owes so much to Robert Altman, and it's like you guys are all going full circle here.
Altman was he was very special. The way that he kind of tried to capture realism amongst the kind of phoniness that is making a movie was something you always can strive for. So.
I need to bring up the Kevin Garnett. And how did you get him to agree to play this crazy role?
The tricky thing about casting Kevin Garnett is, again, we started writing this in 2010. We had the first draft in 2010, and originally
it was Willis Reed.
It was Willis Reed. Yeah. We started with Willis Reed. It started with Amari Stoudemire, and then we tried to update it around 2015. Agencies like, maybe we can get bigger budget if you make it star Kobe. He wants to act. Right, then you start rewriting the script just for Kobe, but it's tough because Amari Stoudemire, him being a black Jewish person, you can understand where the themes come from with the Ethiopian Jewish tribe. With Kobe, it was like, what is it? Is it a youth elixir? Maybe it's a youth elixir, like Howard's trying to tap back into his youth when he was the man. And then, of course, we get the Kobe script ready, and the agent's like, oh, he doesn't want to act anymore. He only wants to direct. And you're like, thanks, I just rewrote the whole script, changed all the themes, and now he doesn't want to do it. And then it ended up with Joel Embiid, who's on the 76ers now, who's a player from Africa. And then the themes were obvious there, you know, him wanting to bring this thing back to his back to the homeland in a way, and then the production slipped into the season, and we're like, oh well, there goes Joel Embiid, and we had to look at recently retired players, and it's tough because I saw Kevin's name, but I was so conditioned to hate him as a Knicks fan that I had to, like, it was tough for me to actually see past that and think I want that person in my movie. And then, you know, you have one phone conversation with him, and the veil, his performative self drops, and you realize, oh, he's like a heel in wrestling. Like, he knows how to. He was out there every night performing for 20,000 people, playing the bad guy, and that's why I hate him. That's how successful he was. And you met with him once, and you realize that he's just, the way he told a story, he could walk you through a story so well from A to Z. I mean, this guy, I had to fly with him a few times, and he'll just tell a story for 6 hours, and he'll keep you interested and engaged. And the way he shapes the story, the way that he improvises things, that's acting, and he's had great timing with it.
Then you have the incredible moment where you explained to him the Garnet, the stone. I mean, that was
Sandler's like, I got to do this. He texted me like in the middle of the night.
Okay, you need to tell us about that. You came up with that?
I just was studying all the stones, and then I said, oh yeah, his name is a stone. We have to comment on that, but I'm sure, I think he probably heard that in real life a few times. But yeah, a lot of the stuff we did, we just talked a lot when we were making the movie. We just constantly talked about the movie. This was the most fun I've ever had for living in a movie, and just we loved it so much, and I'm nonstop before the movie, during the movie, after the movie, while they were editing. It meant so much to us, every word of it.
Your performance.
There was something that Garnett said once. If he was here, I'm sure he would mention it. When they're in the back room, it was such a big scene for him. You know, like a lot of dialogue that he had to get in there, and it was a big conversation, and he was a little bit nervous. And at one point, he was kind of realizing, oh my God, I'm messing it up. But he looked across and he saw Sandler, and you were kind of just like keep it going. You kind of like folded it into the conversation. He's like, this is just talking.
We got very close with Garnett, and he only shot for like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it was crazy.
So that's just 2 weeks, and then he just got he actually came in very confident. Yeah. And got more and more confident every day. And
you picked up that thing from Lakeith that you were.
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, it was great, Lakeith, by the way. And
Keith is amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. It's brilliant, and you know, tell us about The Weeknd and using The Weeknd.
It's funny. I just was.
He's stronger than you think. The Weeknd. I expected to whoop him with ease, but no.
I was just literally texting with him the other day, and he just said, you know, I'm so.
Why might say hello, please?
Oh, I will. I will.
A big fan.
His new album's unbelievable, by the way. It's unbelievable. Yes. It's going to be special. But he early on he saw our previous film, Heaven Knows What, and then he was really responded to that. And then Good Time, we just spawned a big friendship between us, and he just wanted to be a part of the film, and we had a character that was a performer, and then we switched it over to be The Weeknd. And he said, well, if we're going to do this period of myself, I want to portray myself as the live wire screw-up that I was. And which is admirable to him, because a lot of people are very sheltered about their image, and he's playing himself, and he wanted to push it. He wanted to push it farther than we actually did. And you know, he was great, and he performed that song so many times live. He wouldn't lip sing it. He just kept doing it for the 180 people who were there. It was
they would go nuts every time he'd sing.
I'm glad you brought up Heaven Knows What, and I know we need to wrap it up, Sean. I've been getting the hook in the corner.
What's next?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
The Irishman is next.
Oh, the Irishman. That's a good one.
You bring up Heaven Knows What, which at the center of it, there's this toxic romantic relationship, which actually is brought up in this film. And then, before that, you did the Lenny Cook documentary, and it's about basketball. Is that
So you know,
like a layer cake?
Well, the Gems was our North Star for the past 10 years, and everything that we made in the journey of trying to get this made was a footnote of the film. Not to discredit any of those movies, but they were detours in that they were relative detours. Lenny Cook, for obvious reasons, it's about a basketball player. It was on. You can probably see it on Showtime still, and actually Lenny Cook's best friend appears in the movie. His name is Damani in real life, and we took the Damani. I got close to him at the time, and so he's in the film, and then Heaven Knows What. I met the girl doing research in the diamond industry. She had a temporary job in the diamond industry. That's how I met her, and then I ended up getting involved in writing a whole movie about her life based on her own memoirs. And then Good Time was because Pattinson saw Heaven Knows What, and he's like, whatever you're doing next, I want to be a part of. And I was like, you're not right for any of these roles in Gems, and this is what's next. And he's like, well, let's figure something out. And then we realized Gems couldn't get made, and we said, well, let's try to work the muscles of our pacing and our genre filmmaking. And that was very, very helpful to figuring out how to make this movie. Very helpful.
And last question.
But the toxic relationship thing was huge. Benny, it informed a lot of the Julia Howard stuff. It did, so it's a good eye, yeah.
And Dina, we need to mention.
Dina's incredible, yeah.
Phenomenal. What
a lot of American icons in this movie.
Absolutely. Judd Hirsch, incredible.
Adam Sandler.
Yeah, which is the last question.
Howard Ratner.
You were embodying this character, and he's like a pinball. Was it easy at the end of the day to just check out and go home to your family and forget about Howard, or
my family? I've never really done this before. My family kind of stayed out of my way on this one. They normally, I'm with my family all the time. I'm with the kid when I make a movie. They come with me. They hang on the set. This one, I would say to the kids, you don't want to see this. You don't want to be a part of this. And then my wife read the script, and she was very encouraging the whole time. Just, you got to be Howard, and you just got to commit and be in love with Julia and do this. And my wife just really wanted me to be great in this movie. So they kind of stayed back. I think they only came to the set one time or something.
1 or 2 times.
And so I didn't have to worry about coming home with Howard. I would come home and be psychotic on my own.
I did love seeing you turn on Howard when you came on set.
Yeah, it was. Bogosian specifically was just so in awe of everything that he saw Adam was doing, because there was no. He dropped the ego, and he was just Howard on set. It was amazing. Everyone who came on to day play, the crew from the top to the bottom, it was just, we were in Howard's world, and everyone kind of felt like they were in Howard's world. People started wearing jewelry on set. I mean, it was special. It really was.
Yeah. Well, everybody, please give a
Thank you,
warm
everybody.
Thank you, guys. Right on.